Good morning, bonjour. I called another one of my compadres to ask them what they would tell a young journalist in terms of advice. And the first bit of advice my friend gave is that it's not rocket science, which is actually a quite good phrase to describe what media is. My friend, if you're curious, is not from the United States. English is actually a second language, but he works as I think he's an executive producer now, I'm not sure what his title is, at a cable news channel. Although he does a lot of digital work. It's quite high up, but he didn't grow up speaking English. He can speak 3 different languages. He grew up on a different continent. He is gay, and yet he has been able to thrive in media, although mostly because he is a unique, intelligent individual. But the point remains that media and journalism is not rocket science. It is an art that can be practiced and refined by any individual so choosing to become better at it, both in terms of writing, in terms of developing an eye for what makes a piece of information interesting to others. I think that's perhaps the most prevailing, most prescient part of being a good journalist, is developing an eye for what pieces of information would be relevant to others that you know or can find out that others don't. But beyond that, everything else can be learned on the job. It doesn't require an advanced degree in astrophysics. And he is a testament to that. Now, of course, he has an excellent schooling in journalism. He went to J school in Europe, I believe. And then he went to Columbia for a graduate degree in journalism. He is well schooled. But the fact that his first bit of advice is that it's not rocket science should tell you something, dear viewer, if you're interested in pursuing journalism. The second bit of advice he gives, which I also think is a platitude, but is particularly relevant to journalism, and the fake it till you make it. And I asked him a little bit about this, and I said, well, what do you mean by fake it till you make it? It seems kind of banal. I want to give my viewers something interesting. And he said, well, I always wanted to be a journalist, unlike you, BostWiki, who stumbled into this cavernous industry. And because of that, I went to journalism school. And outside of journalism school, I thought, okay, I want to break into, writing hard-hitting reporting. And a lot of journalists have a slight activist bent. And he wanted to see the change in the world, so to speak. But he couldn't get a job anywhere. He couldn't get a job at bloody any media outlet. And so he first took a job writing what he called advertorials, which is, there's many different phrases for the word, but is essentially sponsored posts, right? Citibank, or TD Ameritrade, or the DNC, pays a media company a certain budget, and part of those deals are often, we'll write posts kind of promoting what you're saying, and those are called advertorials, and usually they're designated as such. But of course, you need a warm body to write these things. Preferably somebody with a journalism degree that you can underpay. And that's how he got his start. He did not get to start in some noble, scoop driving way where he suddenly was winning awards. No. He took a job basically writing advertisements. But from there, it's a game of networking and getting your foot in the door. And once he got his foot in the door, he was able to parlay his ability to write advertisements into a junior media role. And from there, climbing up the various companies, at which point he then moved to Turkey and worked in Turkey as military, as a media correspondent in Turkey, and did a fantastic job there. And then he wanted to move to America because he knew the English language was such a broad audience. And he didn't speak, that was not his first language. And he had many people say, just stick to your own native language. Don't try to report stuff in English. You don't understand the culture. You don't understand the geography. And he thought, screw it, I'm going to do it anyway. And he did. It is a testament to his perseverance. And I think that's what he means by when he says, fake it till you make it, that if he can come from a remote part of the world and become a kind of executive producer at a large American media company and be well esteemed by his peers, certainly you or I or one of our friends could do it. The third bit of advice he gives, and I'll make it brief, is that if you go to journalism school, you were taught this idea of separation of church and state, the kind of James Monroe, Thomas Jefferson idea. But instead of it being between church, religion, some sort of political state. It is the idea that all of money and advertising is separated from the idea of editorial journalism, that those pursuing the truth should not have to worry about whether their truth pursuing is affecting the bottom line of the media company. And perhaps during the golden age of journalism, if there ever was such a thing, the Walter Cronkite era, this was true. But he said, by the time, welcome to New York City, where you can hear your tax dollars being spent by the NYPD. Nonetheless, the idea that the separation of church and state between advertising and editorialing in journalism is non-existent by the time he exited journalism school, even 10 years ago. The walls had crumbled massively, like the walls of Jericho. The Canaanites are being kicked out. No longer can you be immune or ignorant to the facts or realities of money in journalism. And that to survive in the modern media landscape is to understand what makes money, what doesn't, and to keep an eye on how your team, your media organization, and the larger company is making money at large. What ads are coming out, what products are you delivering on. It doesn't have to be super advanced, but understanding CPMs, CTRs, click-through rates, cost per thousand clicks or cost per thousand views, sponsored content versus branded content versus programmatic advertising. These are all jargony words that may mean nothing to you. The point is such that the idea of the lone journalist pursuing truth with no thought to anything else is gone, and that if you wish to have a job and keep that job for any longer than 6 months to a year, when the company realizes you are suddenly costing them money and they could hire somebody that would be making them money, then you better keep at least one eye on whether you are generating revenue for the company in some way or another. You are providing value. And I think that was a real shock to him, but something that all journalists have to adapt to, at least in American media, that capitalism has stretched out its arms and picked apart even what was perhaps one of the last remaining walled cities from from the cretin of capitalism. No. We are now all humble servants to the idea of capitalism in media. And I know nothing different, so perhaps I didn't find it that startling. I always assumed that I should be able to prove that I am making any company that employs me money. But I think to him it was a shock, in part because of his schooling. So if you go to journalism school and you're taught, there's a separation between editorial journalism and the money men. No. In any sort of digital space in particular, real journalists will be occasionally writing basically advertisements. He said it's come full circle. I made my start writing advertorials, and now here I am again, occasionally hopping in to write what is essentially sponsored content just to get the job done. I think those are 3 useful facts. If you found this insightful or interesting, click like, subscribe, or leave a comment. Curious to see what you guys think down below. Thanks for watching. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.